What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's video. I'm extremely excited and grateful to bring you Katey Morgan from the Katey Reads YouTube channel. Katey's a full-time mom and a full-time bookseller on both eBay and Amazon. She's a genuine human being, down to earth, who's there to teach you that you can actually change your life selling books. And while it has not been easy to get Katey on the channel, because I know she's a full-time mom, I'm a dad, and I know that the kids' lives dictate our schedules, I'm just so happy that she's finally here. So with that said, Katey, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much, Joji. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think when a lot of people go to YouTube or Google and type in, side hustle to make extra $500 a month or a job to replace their income, right? The outcome or the result they're looking for is how to change their life. They're in a situation where they're like, you know, this area of my life, I'm not happy with it. Is there a way that I can work from home, buy back my time, be with my son or my daughter, my friends, my family in a way that's more meaningful to me? And I know that while you haven't been selling books your entire life, you have been selling for 5 or 6 years now. I think you started in 2019. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about how you decided to make that jump from going from whatever you're doing before to decided to fully and wholly commit to like selling books on eBay and Amazon?
Yeah, my journey was a little bit of a transition. I had always been on eBay since like 2010. My dad used to do wholesale perfumes when I was in high school. Like I was around that kind of hustle mentality. My dad was an entrepreneur, a lot of my family members. So I had that exposure to it. It wasn't crazy weird to me. And so around 2018, I started a Bookstagram account and 2017, 2018, and authors were actually paying me to give honest reviews of their books. I was getting a free copy. I was doing, I was working with some different publishing companies. It was just very time consuming. I was going back to school. I was working on my bachelor's degree. I was assistant vice president of commercial lending at a banking institution at the time, and I was a
Oh,
single mom. So I just had a lot going on. So I backed away from it because reading isn't fun when it becomes, like, your job, and
right.
it's not fun when, like, you have to finish the book even though this book really sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it was just people that, were wanting, just starting out, self-published, that type of thing. And at the time, I was actually publishing my own short stories on Amazon KDP and kind of putting myself out there like that. So really, I had started in more like the author focus and reading, but that was a really, really good foundation for me to switch to book selling because I knew what sold, I knew what people were looking for, I knew how to condition properly. So in 2019, when I decided that I really wanted to get out of debt and essentially, I wanted more freedom in my life. I was getting really, really drained in the corporate world. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I just
Yeah.
cannot emphasize enough to just prioritize your mental as much as possible. And at the time, I was not doing it. And so I really wanted to get out of the corporate world. I just wasn't happy anymore. It wasn't the career. I did it for a while and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my lifelong dream. And I actually found Steve Raiken on,
Awesome.
on YouTube. He was talking about Amazon FBA. And so I tried FBA a little bit, but actually a friend of mine was moving to Utah and I would approach this totally different now, but at the time, she gave me 4 totes of books, huge plastic totes, and they were metaphysical, nonfiction. I mean, just the great, awesome nonfiction stuff that's vintage, some of it no longer in print.
Right.
I decided I'm gonna throw it up on eBay and see what happens, and really all it took was for me to get consistent sales 3 days in a row, and I was hooked. I was like, "Okay, I wanna do this. I
Awesome.
I I can do this." So, I met Romer, got to know Romer a little bit, and he started encouraging people to find free inventory. And I thought, huh, can I get people to give me free stuff? And how can I not be a taker in that? How can it be a value to both parties? Because that's really the key. So for me, I decided to develop a free book pickup service in my
Okay.
county. I pick up anywhere in my county for free. I am working with churches now, schools, organizations, libraries, residential people. I just recently, a couple weeks ago, received an award from our local service club for helping them with their free little libraries.
Wow, that's awesome.
I've been heavy in my community. I was in city government for a little while, so I had a head start with having that network.
Wow.
So it was just so exciting. It blew up. I had to get a storage unit. I mean, it was just crazy.
Wow.
And I finally after the pandemic, late 2020, I finally got into a position where I felt comfortable going into the nonprofit sector. So I
Right.
was already a fundraising volunteer at my local animal shelter. They offered me an operations manager position. I took it. And that was really a transition for me, getting away from like this scary feeling of like, I have to go to marketplace to get my insurance,
Right.
or I don't have a matched 401k anymore. What am I going to do?
Right.
And, all of that stuff. And that kind of helped me transition with that,
Okay.
transition to a little bit lower salary, pay off some expenses, lower my expenses, like do some different things. And then eventually, when I had my son in 2022, I was in a position where I was comfortable to leave the nonprofit, and do this full time, along with like some other side things that I do. I do freelance social media management and stuff like that for some
Wow.
people. So,
Wow.
and I finished my bachelor's degree. So I always
Oh,
think in the back of my mind, if anything, goes bad, I always have that backup plan, that degree, my experience. But I finally have what I've been dreaming about since 2019. I absolutely love it. I have my YouTube channel. I have a great book community like you guys. So that's been the transition for me. And essentially, I just wanted to have freedom. I wanted to be able to not have to ask somebody if I can take a week off. I wanted to be able to give back to my community, but make money. And I love books. I think if it was any other product, I may not even be doing this. Like I told someone this the other day. If it wasn't books, I don't know that I'd be a reseller, but I love the product. It's an abundant thing,
right.
and it's keeping them out of landfills, which is, really important to me as well. So that's kind of my story. That's
Yeah.
that's
I
the
mean,
long, so that's the long ramble version.
I appreciate it. It brings into perspective a lot of your history, and I know there's that term "jack of all trades." It's actually the Katie of all trades because you've done
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
it's really inspiring. The purpose of this interview is, my YouTube channel as well as your YouTube channel is pretty obvious that the reason why you make content is to show like how books can actually change people's
Yeah.
lives, and you
Mhm.
can see it just come out in that response right there. So, just a few sort of questions that maybe not so deep as that first question, just to give a little bit of background, context to people who maybe think they want to come into selling books to see how it could potentially, disrupt their normal life and make their life better. But can you just give us a little bit of walk down? What platforms do you sell on? And can you give us a little bit of like, what's the percent mix of terms of like, is it 50% eBay, 50% Amazon, or some
Yeah.
whatnot? If you could go over that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so it's probably trying to think how much I have active on FBA right now, because I just started back with FBA in February. I've had a very on-off love-hate relationship with Amazon,
Right.
but I'm back to it, and I'm seeing the fruits of my labor now. I would say probably, 70-30 with eBay having most of my inventory right now.
Okay.
The reason for that is, I get a lot of vintage X library, I get a lot of collectible, I get a lot
Right.
of antiques, I get a lot of very unique things that sometimes the market is better,
Right.
with eBay, as far as sell-through rate.
Okay.
So again, I have very specific criteria with eBay, I have very specific criteria with Amazon, and that was hard for me recently. I actually just started getting really strict with that, with the 2 platforms. And then as far as Etsy, I focus more on ephemera. So paper products in general kind of go hand in hand with the vintage stuff that I dabble with.
Right.
So a lot of my X Library books, I take out the X Library little checkout card and I sell those for $4 a piece on, Etsy.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
That has been going on since 2021. I'm the top rated seller with that. And it's been absolutely awesome journey. Etsy's been really, really great with that. I really love the platform. It just made sense. It fit with the handmade, world, ephemera crafting, all of that. So yeah, I laminate them, make them pretty, and we sell them as bookmarks or whatever people want to use them for.
That's incredible. I just recently interviewed Max Ruback again for the second time, and
Yeah.
he's telling me how he's crushing whatnot. And I'm just like, whoa! I thought it was like Amazon and eBay, and not. I mean, there's Etsy, there's whatnot. It's awesome the creative means to find ways to also monetize, right, and
Mhm.
provide value in other ways. Now I know that you even mentioned you alluded this early on that free book pickups have been a large part of what has made you successful. I'm wondering, um, have you found any one platform or any one type of advertising for you specifically that was really successful, really like kick things off?
Honestly, I got out of my shell and wasn't scared to tell people what I was doing, and word of mouth will forever and always. I mean, I'm just really, really lucky with a strong network of community leaders.
Right.
But Facebook, I have a Facebook page, and Facebook Marketplace has changed. Back in 2019, you could post like an ad on
Okay.
Marketplace and people would reach out to you. Now that ad will maybe be up for like 5 minutes and then they'll shut it down because I'm
Oh,
not
no.
like selling something.
Right.
Well, that's kind of changed. I used to be in some community Facebook groups that would allow you to advertise services that you do.
Okay.
But now I've built up enough of a network. I actually just have a client list. I have emails from all librarians around the local area, schools, colleges. I keep names and emails of different churches that have reached out to me. I have Facebook Messenger, which has people that have reached out to me in the past. I kind of coordinate. I do have an Excel sheet. I do track the metrics of this person, where they were located, what was my acceptance rate. Yeah, I include eBay with the acceptance rate because it's relevant. And so that's kind of, you know, I email them a couple times a year if I haven't heard from them in a while. I just nurture relationships accordingly too. So
Awesome. I think one reason that you're also so successful with this because in your videos you express that an outlet for the books in a positive way for the community will work wonders. So could you give us a little bit of a rundown, like some examples and of how you actually aren't just like taking? Because I know a lot of people go, you're taking from people, you're taking it to you're greedy, you're selfish. But in reality, like the majority of books that you will end up picking up are not worth monetizing anyways, right? So could you give some examples of ways that you are actually improving the community through the books you do pick up for free?
yeah, absolutely. So essentially, what I do when people ask me, I'm very transparent. I'm 100% honest when they ask me what I'm doing with it. I say I am a used bookseller, and then whatever I cannot sell is recycled back into the community. I don't take it anywhere else outside of that. And I definitely put my money where my mouth is with that. So what I do is I restock free little libraries for the different like
Mhm.
Rotary Club, Kiwanis, things like that. So I restock them. I am part of a migrant health fair once a year, and I give out Spanish language books to the migrant workers in my community. And then I do work with our local Goodwill. I've had conversations with the regional manager. They have a Goodwill bookstore that's about an hour and a half away from me. So they're like, yeah, we'll take all your books anytime you have books that, you can't do anything with. So I do give some to Goodwill. And then a lot gets recycled back to like daycares, different churches that
Wow.
have interests and stuff. Again, I've just been really blessed with like finding outlets. And then now I'm in works with our local county jail to provide books for inmates. So I do definitely put my money where my mouth is with that piece of it of
Right.
giving back whatever I can't use. And I present it as like not, oh, hey, give me your free books. I present it as like, do you have a problem? And I'm a solution to your problem. Your
Yeah.
problem is you have a lot of books and you don't want to deal with it. Let me help you.
Yeah. ab-
So I think it's just about presenting it as a solution to a problem.
Yeah. I think the take home there is putting yourself out there. But
Mhm.
then also, so not being afraid to talk to people, that's huge. Letting people know what you do, but being honest about it. And this is part of the nonprofit part of it, right? Because you don't get paid any money to go drive, to the county jail and drop the books off. You don't get paid any money to drive to the school and drop them off, but it is fostering those relationships which you're seeing bear fruit. And it's not like I know from just talking to you, it's not like you're doing this in a selfish way. You're actually doing it because you are passionate about books. That's how you
Mhm.
started with beforehand. So really awesome to hear that. In some of your videos, I know that you often say you would recommend and you love working most with organizations rather than just with maybe someone who is, just an individual. Could you kind of talk to us about why establishing that relationship with organizations, it makes you so excited, like why you like working with those organizations the most?
I mean, obviously, the bulk piece of it, you're getting more inventory per pickup. The acceptance rate is almost always significantly higher. And I like working with organizations because it just expands the opportunity. And I'm definitely not saying that nurture smaller opportunities.
Right.
There's a couple retired professors that still hit me up every once in a while and want to get rid of their collection, little bits here and there. They're retiring. Those are people, absolutely great. But the organizations, I mean, the staff know me, the board members know me. I mean, that just really, it really expands your ability to meet other people that have books that they either don't want or don't care about. I mean, people just, you'll be surprised how willing people are willing to just, they're okay with it. They don't care what you do with it. And if they do care, then they won't reach out to you. So,
Exactly.
but yeah, I would say definitely the biggest thing is just the bulk side of it. You
Okay.
get a lot more per pickup from larger organizations. And typically it's something that is, how do I want to say, sustainable, I guess, consistent,
Yep.
because one organization I'm getting every single week from them, a couple organizations I'm getting once a month, and then a couple organizations I'm getting twice a year. So,
Okay.
having that consistency is really important because then it helps me figure out possible dry times when I need to thrift versus I know I'm going to be drowning and I don't have to worry about thrifting as much. I mean, I'm not saying I don't ever thrift, but
Right.
that's kind of why I think working with organizations is helpful too, because of that consistency piece.
Yeah, you're bringing up so many questions. One of them is, and I already have a list of questions that I'm wanting to ask you that I think are great questions, and then you just keep giving more information. That just more questions come to mind. So one is, how often are you actually doing book pickups? Like, is this something that happens on a regular day? Like, do you have two scheduled for today, one tomorrow? Like, how consistent actually is it on like a day to day basis?
Gotcha. So I live in Michigan, so it's very seasonal for me.
Okay.
And so I would say once March hits,
Uh,
it's crazy. I
yeah.
could potentially have a pickup every single day. I could maybe have a couple in the same day.
Okay.
Today I had 15 boxes to pick up, and then I'm waiting on another organization to call me. They usually call me around Wednesday or Thursday. I'll pick up from them. I actually have such a weekly relationship with them. We just use recycled totes. So they give
Oh,
me the
cool.
totes, I empty it out, I can come the totes back and,
Awesome.
I do try to give myself reasonable time to process because I
Okay.
don't wanna burn myself out. So, daily, I'll do it if it's residential. If it's bigger organizations that I know are gonna be bigger pickups, I like to keep that to, like, 2 a week max
Okay.
because I have to give myself time to process.
Right.
But it kinda depends. Sometimes they need you now.
Yeah.
So you just gotta make it work and you gotta have space. I have plenty of space, so if I have to, I can have a little desk pile back there, but I don't like doing that if I don't absolutely have to. During the winter time is a little bit drier, so I plan accordingly when it comes to like going to estate sales. I don't really go to thrift stores as much anymore. The estate sale companies who I start networking with around that time,
Okay.
and they actually prefer it because it's crappier weather, so it's better for them. If I show up the last day of the sale and they, give me super cheap rate for whatever's left, or they give me whatever's left. So I'll do that. And then I have a couple organizations and libraries that I'm getting weekly from them anyways. So again, that's where it kind of comes with like working with organizations, knowing that you're going to have slower times, having
Right.
that consistency with a couple different organizations, and then building relationships with, the sporadic estate sale situation that might come up.
Yeah, it's good to know for people who are out there thinking they may wanna do this, just to know that it's seasonal, so you may not expect it to be
Mhm.
year-round consistent. By the way, I wanted to let people know who come from my YouTube channel, I'm not sure how familiar you are with what I do, Katie, but I do online book arbitrage, which means, I have a 9 to 5 job, I have a son, so I normally source books from 10:30 PM to midnight, and so I buy them on Amazon when they become undervalued and then resell them on Amazon for a profit. So again, not sure how familiar you are with that, but for people who come to my channel and do that, a lot of times the number one issue is the capital, right? I certainly
Mhm.
didn't start doing that because I was a college kid, I didn't have any money, and doing free book pickups or starting out with with limited capital. Like this is an actual way to build capital if you ever wanted to later transition to do what I do. I'm not trying to pitch you guys here to do what I do or what Katie does. The point of this is showing you that there are plenty of ways that you can become successful and really change your life with books. Katie's giving you one way and then my way is another way. But my point here being is one way I can add value bringing Katie here onto my channel is that if you are one of those people who wants to do what I do, but you need a capital, this is an amazing way to start building because these are free book pickups. Um, now let's, for again, people who are new, how in the world do you know if this book is good or that book is good, especially when you have Amazon and you have eBay and you have barcode and you have no barcode? So can you give us a little bit of an understanding of how do you know that book there is good for eBay or that book there is good for Amazon, or this is something that needs to go to a free little library?
Yeah, that's a $1,000,000 question, right? That's
Yeah.
one of the biggest questions that I receive, when people, hit me up for kinda like one-on-one chats. I do those every now and then. That's the biggest question is, how do I know where to sell this? How do I and just respectfully, I say you have to do the research and do the work,
Right.
um,
Fair enough.
and you just have to. I've been doing this for 5 years. I still learn something new every single day when it comes to books. I mean, no one is a guru with everything.
Right.
So essentially, if it has an so how I process, I'll just explain how I
That'd
process
be amazing.
my flow. If it has an ISBN number or a barcode on the back, I set it aside to check out on Scout IQ for Amazon. Okay. If it does not, I set it aside. And that's how I just process my stacks. I just stack it up. I just process it. It's very, very fast. And then once it's, if it's not good for Amazon, but I just have that feeling like there's certain authors, vintage authors that I'm familiar with now, certain illustrators, like I can't teach how to follow your gut. That comes with time and
Right.
experience. And that's what I tell people. You're just going to have to be comfortable with you might make some mistakes and then you'll have to learn from that along the way. Because there's been times where it hasn't been great for Amazon, but it's a vintage first edition that's no longer in print by, for example, Tommy DePaola, which is, he passed away. He's a vintage children's author and it's library binding and someone's willing to give me $35 for it on eBay. Sell-through rate's really good. So it's just different things like that. The ones that I set aside for eBay that don't have an ISBN or barcode on the back, I still check the inside because there's ISBN numbers on the inside and the copyright page. If it's before 66, which I see that a lot, sometimes the ISBN isn't there because ISBN wasn't like super popular until like
Right.
late 60s, early 70s. It's like uniform for a lot of publishers. So if it doesn't have an ISBN number or like has a library card catalog, sometimes what I'll do is I'll get Amazon Seller Central out and scan the front title of it and see if anything even pops up. Does it even have an ASIN? And then if it does, I'll kind of, that's a longer process. That's why I save it for last. And then whatever was rejects for Amazon, I just kind of go through it. Is there anything that I know for sure is going to be good for eBay? And I kind of go through that, do the research, and pretty much if both of those platforms, I sort through Amazon first. I get it completely that done and out of the way. It's the fastest processing part of my flow. And then eBay takes a little bit longer. That's the final piece. And then whatever's left over from that, based on the condition of the book, it'll end up in a free little library. It will maybe again, if it's a Spanish book, it'll be set aside for that. I mean, there's just so many different things that I have going on that I'll set it aside for. And then, I do have a Goodwill pile. So
Okay. Cool. Yeah, awesome workflow there. And yeah, what I was getting at is the lowest hanging fruit if you're getting started is Scout IQ, right? Scanning the barcodes, right? That'll tell you. And again, do your own research. There's tons of YouTube videos out there to figure out whether or not this is a book when you scan it that you should keep or not for Amazon. So that's good there. Also, by the way, you mentioned Scout IQ. So I'm not sure if you have an affiliate link, but if you do, we'll put it down below. So if you want to support Katie in an additional way, we'll
thank
put her link down below so you can get a small kickback. It's not like she's going to become rich off it, but she's providing immense value. So the least you could do is give her a little kickback. Next question I have for you is a lot of new sellers who are going to end up going and trying out these free book pickups are probably going to fall into some traps, some pitfalls, right? So what would be like your number one tip for like vetting the quality and the condition of books and whether or not it's worth your time if like you've never done that before?
yeah, that was something I had to learn very quickly
Yeah.
when I put it out there on Facebook because there's not a lot of booksellers in my immediate area, but there were a couple that were trying to reach out to me to pretty much pick up their duds. And they were like willing to meet me and
Yeah.
all of that. And I just said, respectfully, based on your profile, it looks like, I just don't think it would be a good business fit. You're outside
Yeah.
of my area. So I kind of was able to hold my ground with that, with like the outside booksellers that were trying to kind of throw their duds onto me. What I ask when people with organizations, I don't have to worry as much, churches, colleges, schools, libraries, things like that. That's not, I don't have to worry about potential bed bugs can get in books. Like, I don't think people know that. It's a thing. Not just bookworms, bed bugs can be in there. Like, it's a thing. So, what I pretty much and then smoke. Like, I won't sell moldy books. I won't sell books
Right.
that smell like smoke, things like that. So, I just ask some basic vetting questions, if someone says, "Hey, I have some books, would you be willing to pick them up?" Okay. What do you think you have the most of? I try to respectfully kind of feel them out and see what they have. Oh, it's a bunch of kids' books over. Okay. Are they in good or better condition? Because
Right.
whatever we can't sell, we like to donate back into the community. So I want to make sure that they're, good or better condition. And is it from a smoke free home?
Right.
And kind of depending on their answers to that, very rarely have I had to, politely decline. But when I politely decline, I offer resources.
Right.
It's not just a hard no. So
Okay.
what I say is, I don't think that'll be a good fit for what I'm doing, but I do know that this charity, if you're willing to pay $10, will come and pick up those books from you and recycle it and do this and that, blah, blah, blah. So it's been okay. I mean, really, I've only had to decline. I can count on one hand, and I've been doing this 5 years. So, I mean, it's been a pretty decent fit. It's gone pretty well. And with it has come media, has come ephemera, has come, different things that I've been able to sell as well, on Amazon or eBay. So that's kind of just my vetting process. I ask a few like very quick kind of questions to just see if it'll be a good fit. And then from there, again, kind of depending on the situation, like sometimes with the larger organizations, I'll ask them to send me a picture so I get an idea on bulk size and what we're talking about. I drive a Ford Explorer, so it's like, I have to kind of get an idea. Do I need to drag my brother-in-law into this with his
Right.
truck or not? Like that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I just ask a few very basic questions.
Right.
There's not much negotiating or anything involved, and then it's just, day or time, and I ask that they be boxed or bagged up. I don't take loose books.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Sort of thing, so
That's a good tip right there. Yeah. I know that you say that consistency comes with establishing and maintaining these relationships with organizations and even with just people, over a long period of time. Do you have any tips and strategies for best doing that? Like I know Reezy resells, neighbor always say, bring some donuts to a library seller, brings a cup of coffee. Do you have any recommendations maybe outside of just something like that?
yeah, I would say that once you're gonna talk to someone in some type of leadership role. It's either gonna be maybe they run the children's department or maybe they're just the manager of wherever, ask them about their, board meetings, or do they have any fundraising groups that are part of this? Or could you meet some people and their friends of the library and everything like that and kind of build relationships outside of that, just one person. I try to avoid the whole lighthouse thing. I want to have multiple people with that organization that I can reach out to. So that way it's not, I've built a relationship with just this one person. I want a
Nice.
relationship with the organization as a whole. So that way everyone kind of knows who I am and what I'm doing. So that's how I've done that, is just saying hi, shaking people's hands, showing up to things. I mean, with your local library, it's actually really easy to do because the library's always got stuff going on, especially if you
Right.
have kids. If they do sales or don't do sales, ask them why they don't do sales. And is it something that you could maybe get some friends to help you volunteer once in a while to help them with sales and you get first pick? Like, there's different things that could go on with that. And then I personally just I frequently email, I keep in communication, I make donations sometimes. Like if I get some really big sales from their pickup, which this has happened, I'll buy like a Friends of the Library membership for the year or something, just
Awesome.
kind of like, 100, $250 membership just to kind of have that relationship. Another thing that you can do, again, depending on time and energy and how I know not everybody's extroverted and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or comfortable with networking, which you'll have to get used to that because a closed mouth won't get fed, guys.
Yeah.
But joining service clubs genuinely just do things for the community to help. You're going to meet bankers, you're going to meet lawyers, you're going to meet doctors, you're going to meet people in your community that are, kind of big, heavy people in the community that can introduce you to more people. So that's another way to kind of foster the relationship is, you know, what does that organization care about? What are they about? And kind of go from there. When it comes to the churches, essentially, it's just checking in once in a while. Hey, I saw, I'll kind of follow like their Facebook page, even though I'm not really a religious person and it's not something that, I'm not going to show up on Sunday morning, but
Right.
I'll follow their Facebook page. And if I see they're having a rummage sale, I'll say, hey, I see you guys are having a rummage sale. Just checking in, let you know I'm still here. If you need me for anything after the rummage sale, let me know.
Awesome.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, so many strategies and tips there. One that stuck out to me was the fact that every organization has tons of churn, especially if it's a nonprofit organization. So even though Katey might have a really great relationship with the person who's in charge, that person could very well be gone the next year. So
Yeah.
I really like that idea of establishing a relationship with everyone. And even as simple as the intern could become the head person in 5 years. You never know, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
being a nice person and showing that you add value to the community long term really well. And something that you said, and I'm just curious, right? Because you do all these free book pickups, you've been doing it since 2019. What has been? This is just my own curiosity. What has been like the largest or the best single flip, both monetarily, but then also like a book you were just super excited about, whether it's reading? Because I know that you're also very passionate about books. So what was like the biggest book flip you ever got from free book pickup, and then a book that you just were like, wow, I'm really excited to have this book.
Oh, wow. So my biggest pickup, I think, wasn't really actually a book pickup. It
Mm.
was a previous bookstore owner had closed, unfortunately, and she just had some life changes. It wasn't necessarily business related, just some life changes.
Okay.
So she had 3 storage units full of inventory that just didn't sell by closing day. She was so attached to it. I mean, this bookstore was her baby. So she's like, I had hopes of selling on eBay, but it didn't happen. And I've had it for a year and a half. Do you want them? And I'm like, uh, okay. So we did that. We got 2 of the units. One of them I ended up just kind of cherry picking a little bit the last unit. And she ended up keeping a good amount of the last unit because a lot of them were her own personal collection. The first 2 were really from the bookstore. So in going through that, I found 4 sets of volume 1 and volume 2 of the Dwight Eisenhower.
Okay, there.
And those books that he like wrote, I guess, I can't remember the title of them,
Okay.
but they're vintage older books and they sell so fast. And I mean, there was barely any listed. I listed all 4 set, different condition with each of them. Some had writing, some didn't. And so one of them sold for 350 and then the other 3 sold for around 200. So I mean, in total, that was a crazy, crazy find. I mean,
Yeah.
there were tons of other gems throughout 2 huge storage units,
Right.
but those Eisenhower ones, and, like, I'm always on the lookout for those.
Yeah.
They're like red leather 2-volume set books.
Okay.
I'm always on the lookout for those. And then one that I was really, really excited about is, through a high school. They had from the 1950s, edition of The Jungle Book, and it was just so beautiful, like, it was leather. It wasn't, worth a whole lot on eBay, but it was, like, green leather, the illustrations were all there, the little wax paper that kind of, like, protects the illustrations were there. There was almost no writing, it was just ex-libris, so it had some of those markings, so I was able to, like, carefully get rid of some of the stickers on the outside and stuff. Beautiful, beautiful copy, and I did end up keeping that one because it's so cool. I mean, it's the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
I'm a '90s baby, so that's pretty nostalgic anyways, having something like that old. So that was a really, really cool find that I ended up keeping, and I do that sometimes. I mean, I'll admit that as a bookseller and
There's
someone
nothing
that
wrong with
likes
that.
books. I mean, some of these are
Yeah.
from
A lot of them probably are, right?
I
Yeah.
will admit that, but yeah, that big flip from the storage, yeah, I mean, and that's just the big hitters of
Right.
those Eisenhower books. I mean, and there were just tons of even romance. There was some hardcover romance that's no longer in print from the '40s, Ian Fleming with his, and the Perry Mason novels, the old school, like, kinda Sherlock Holmes novels. The ones that were sold really cheap in the 50s and 60s in airports, people are paying big money for those now. So there's a ton of those from her bookstore. So yeah, that was probably still to this day one of my biggest hauls and my most profitable, just
Awesome.
because of the volume. There was just so much there.
One of the perks of doing this, even with online book arbitrage, is I'll even come across books on Amazon that I'm personally interested in, and I'll buy them. And I only necessarily buy them if they're also profitable, like I can flip them. But I often will buy books I end up reading and then flip them and make a profit when I'm done reading. And you can see that Katie actually has
Yeah.
an awesome collection behind her, and that's something that
Yeah.
if you are passionate about books, it's a major perk of this. Cool.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, lastly, to kind of wrap up just a free book pickup session here or
Mhm.
section. To what extent do you lean on like Max Ruback as someone as a teacher and as an educator for identifying the value of your rare books versus you doing your own research and figuring out kind of what your books are
Yeah, so I've known Max for a little while. Last year we connected and kind of built a little bit more of like a closer business relationship. And yeah, he's definitely taught me a lot of things. But I think that the types of books that I get, I haven't had to reach out to him too much. Now, if I
worth.
started dabbling and getting a ton of like the Easton Press realm,
Right,
and he's kind of like the guru when it comes to Easton Press and, Folio Society and Franklin Library and, sign stuff and, that kind of thing. I have reached out to him as far as like very rare scrapbooks and handmade
right,
books. I found a book from 1938 that a fifth grade class made talking about how paper first started and like
wow,
they typed it and made it like an actual book. So kind of talked with him about that. He's kind of given me advice on like how to essentially price high but not ridiculous,
right,
especially when it's like just a one of a kind item. So he's
right,
definitely helped me with that.
okay,
Uh, but I deal with a lot of like ex-library children's books. Well, lately, but
okay,
in general, that's kind of what I delve into. So, and he's taught me a lot about art books too. I
cool,
do get a lot of interior design and art books, and he's taught me a lot about that.
awesome,
But I
uh,
would say, like, leaning on other people, I like the research. So for
yeah,
me, it's like, and I'm not knocking anybody that reaches out to other people. I'm not saying like that they're lazy or anything like that.
right,
Not what I'm saying, but I just truly do enjoy the research because I have a YouTube channel. So it's in my advantage to
right,
learn things, do the research, and then I can share that with other people, or people that decide to reach out to me and get some advice from me about things. So it just helps me at the end of the day be a better content creator, teacher, and business owner. So
absolutely. For any of you interested in the free book pickups, Katie has a video she recently posted, I think in the last couple of weeks, where she goes
yeah.
much more in depth. We kind of spend a lot of
Mhm.
time talking about that because I think it's what has made you really successful. And I think you
Yeah.
acknowledge that in your own
Absolutely.
videos. So we didn't cover everything. So I would say make sure you go over to Katie Reed's YouTube channel. We'll even show a thumbnail right here so you can see the video. Make sure you subscribe,
Well,
like the video. And a few more questions here before we wrap up. I'm an Amazon bookseller. It's very easy for me to sell a book because it's like, here's a book, here's a specific listing, there's an ASIN or an ISBN, like it matches, right? There's really no creativity with that. That's why there's also it's the lowest hanging fruit because if you can use the scanning app or you can use Keepa, like you can pair two things together.
mhm.
What I think is so amazing or so awesome about, in this case, eBay and Etsy is that you can become really creative. So, do you have any sort of tips and tricks for creative ways that you've learned to monetize books that maybe a lot of people would just not do?
Yeah, so eBay, it's definitely been keyword. And with eBay, I mean, eBay has a sell similar feature. So, I mean, with listing it, it's pretty, but eBay is like pictures and
Right.
keywords and, being creative with things like that. So with yearbooks, I always add in the word genealogy because you have to think like the buyer. And
Uh,
sometimes in the search bar, they're just going to put general topics. They're not
right.
going to type in, Michigan high school library or high school yearbook 1984 or
Right.
whatever. Um, so that is something that has worked really well for me is utilizing keywords and, item specifics and things like that within the eBay platform. With Etsy, I don't have this on eBay yet. I've heard it's a thing that might be happening on eBay, but with Etsy, you can do a 15 or 30-second video with your listing.
Oh,
And
cool.
that is so huge. And I do a little bit of cross listing with Vendu from eBay to Etsy with like my higher price dollar books because Etsy charges just a little bit more to list on there.
Okay.
And that is one thing that I really want to start doing with some of those listings because having that visual of me opening the book and flipping through it. I mean, think about it. That's what you do when you're at a bookstore or at a library, going to check out a book or whatever. You open it up, you check it out, especially if you have books that have illustrations. I think that would be so huge because illustrations, having all the photo plates, that's a really good seller with certain types of books. Because there was like a period in the 80s where a lot of people would buy certain books and they would tear out all the plates and frame them and sell that separately. It was like a really big
Wow.
trend for a while. So some of those older books, like you don't have those all the plates. So it's really important to show those illustrations or those photos that are in that book. So that's one thing I really do like about Etsy. And Etsy is the market for vintage,
Right.
collectible, the higher dollar books anyways. So it makes sense to kind of have that visual. So that's one tip that I would definitely give people are going to try and do that with Etsy is utilizing that video feature is really, really key right now. It's the biggest thing that Etsy has been pushing, and now that Etsy has the gift mode where you can, like, click, "I'm looking for a gift." It's, like, AI generated, so you click, "I'm looking for a gift for my mom for her birthday. She likes this stuff," and it'll show you different listings,
Oh,
and so far, the algorithm is liking listings that have a video. So again, it's just a really, really good thing if you decided to cross list into the Etsy realm.
very cool. Max Ruback was really excited to tell me about how he's been successful at Whatnot, and it didn't seem like
Mhm.
you're using Whatnot at all. One thought I have, I know that children's books generally tend to have less value because of the fact
Yeah.
that they have lower MSRP. But one thing that I was kind of thinking about after having interviewed Max about that, and I know Max doesn't do children's books, but my point was that monetizing children's books is very difficult. But if you had a Whatnot where you actually do have a community, you have a community on YouTube, maybe bring them over and I don't know, maybe bundling a bunch of books together and charging $1 per book or something might be worth it. Not that you should do this. I'm just saying that's just an interesting idea I thought about because I know children's books tend to not to be very monetizable. But
Yeah, and with children's books, sometimes I'll even lot them up and run them as auction on eBay, all a bundle all by the same author. Or I've actually had questions to make a video about this. So that's
oh, cool.
give you guys a little gem. That's a video that's gonna probably be coming up soon. I actually started on Whatnot in 2022.
Oh, you did. Wow.
Yeah, and I know I didn't mention them, so it's not your fault. I didn't mention that I was on Whatnot. I just think that the type of products that I have on Whatnot and the fact that it's a live selling platform, it was difficult for us to coordinate for this interview. I mean,
Right. Absolutely.
imagine trying to do that once or twice a week with a live auction with 2 kids. It's just a bit of a struggle for me,
Right.
and I think that the type of products that I have and the type of following that I have, I just do so much better when I am either participating in, like, raid trains, and that is where, like, it's 20 different sellers, everybody's got a half hour or hour time slot, and we
Wow.
just raid each other. I actually have one coming up May 31st. It's a halfway to Halloween, so it's gonna be all horror, thriller, Halloween themed books, that
Huge.
type of thing. It'll be
That's
fun.
awesome.
And then when I do decide to do a show, just me kinda, like, on my own doing a pop-up show, ephemera and craft, like, related junk journaling stuff, that, I have tons of that from everything that I do with my pickups, and I'm able to add value there, and those shows, have been my most profitable compared to books. So I think, again, it just depends on the products and kinda what you have and what you got going on. I'm not saying I never sell books on Whatnot again, but I've found other things that just kinda work for me. So but I do like Whatnot, and like I said, I definitely will participate with, like, the book rate trades that they have going on and stuff like that. It's really fun. It's, like, fast paced and, you can tip on Whatnot, you can tip people, and so people are
Awesome.
tipping you, and it's a fun event. I guess I should say I like doing the event,
Absolutely.
when I do them, so.
Yep. Sounds like know your strengths, figure out where
Yeah.
most of the value is coming, like, 'cause at the end of the day, you
And
said you have to
time
pay the bills.
management. that type of thing. I just, if I had more time, I definitely consider Whatnot more. But it's just in my lifestyle right now. But that's why I still kind of dabble with it because I definitely don't ever want to just completely leave the platform. So
Yeah, absolutely. And below we'll put Katie's Whatnot link because I think if they use your link, they'll get like $10 or something. I
yeah,
always
yeah, yeah. I think it's 15 now. So
oh,
I
15?
think it's 15. Yep.
Cool.
To
So if you
spend,
wanna
and it
give it
doesn't have to be with me. It can be with any live show.
right. So, link below, another way that you can support Katie if you want to. So there'll be a Scout IQ link and a Whatnot link down below if you wanna support
Yep.
Katie. Now, I know, earlier we talked a little bit about, like, how do you value books. I do online book arbitrage, so all of my decisions are made up of looking at historical selling data using Keepa. I'm wondering, in what ways do you try to generally find the ballpark value of a book? Are you using Keepa? Are you using Terapeak? Are you kind of just guessing from past experience? How do you go about that?
With Amazon, because I'm just very part-time with Amazon, like, I say that, right, I'm still kinda Amazon and I are, like, talking, like that kind of thing. So with that, I just follow the Scout IQ metrics. I focus more on eScore,
Okay.
that type of thing. So when it comes to Amazon, that's what I do there. When it comes
Okay.
to eBay, I like to be at a 30% or higher sell-through rate, and I do base that on 90 days.
Wow, that's really good.
Now,
Yeah.
if this is a $200 book and I don't see anything sold and there's a couple listed, I do have a WorthPoint subscription. I'm gonna go on WorthPoint and see if it's ever sold. A $200 plus book, if it's not gonna sell for 8 months to maybe a year, I'm kind of willing to wait on that.
Okay.
For example, I found at an estate sale for $3 back in 2020 a book by D.W. DeLawrence on mysticism. That book sold for $500 and it took 6 months to sell. There was no sold on eBay at the time within that 90 days. But if you go to WorthPoint, you can see that some had been selling for $300. Mine sold for 5 because I had the dust jacket that was still in pretty decent condition. So ever since then, and that was kind of like my lesson with like the higher dollar ones.
Right.
I'm willing to do a little bit more research and not be as strict. The reason that I like to be at 30% or higher sell through rate based on 90-day sold comps at a certain percentage, I like to be at a like potential profit of at least 12 bucks, like minimum. The
Okay.
reason I like that is just because of cash flow. Like that's just where I'm at right now in my business. Not to say that, people that are doing $10 and under, if you're willing to do that in volume, yeah, I mean, definitely. If you want to do $10 books free shipping on eBay, that's definitely something you can do. But with media mail costs kind of rising and my personal business model and my storage ability, I really like to have a certain metrics on eBay. So that's what I do.
Yeah, it's really smart because even though you said you have a lot of space, you don't wanna be a book collector, right? You're trying to sell books, and it
Mhm.
doesn't seem like you have an issue of getting new inventory. So in many ways, it's like, how can you just get through the inventory
Correct.
faster, right? How can you
Yep.
just sell it?
Yep.
So that
Yep.
kinda goes into, my question about the target range for pricing because I do online book arbitrage, so I set minimum maximum prices based upon
Mhm.
historical selling data. I know that I don't think you can do that for eBay, have a repricer. I'm assuming you probably don't have a repricer for Amazon, but
Not right now.
knowing that you want to sell through 30% in 90 days, are you pricing below market price in your opinion? Or are you like right at market value on most
Right at
books, right? Not the
market.
rare books, but most books.
Yeah, I mean, right at market for, like, my bread and butter books, I guess you could call them. I'm usually right at market, so it's like a $12 to $15 price. I may make offers if it's been sitting for about, I don't know, 60 days, that type of thing. And I'll do sporadic sales, coupons to previous buyers, like that type of promotional stuff. But yeah, that's kinda where I'm at, 12 to 15. I used to list books for $5 plus shipping, but I just really had to tighten how I was doing things, especially when I decided to go full time with it in 2022. So I just really had to. I mean, that's the nice thing about this. You can kind of do a rebranding and do a makeover in your store however you want. You have that flexibility to do that. You don't have to talk to the manager first and get approval and do all this other things. You can adjust your business whenever you decide it needs to be adjusted. So that's what I decided to do. And it's been great. I mean, and I always charge shipping. I never do free shipping. And it hasn't hurt. I do promoted listings. It's kind of just a pass through at this point based on how I price books. So that way after, you know, if there is any cost of goods, which usually there isn't, and then fees and, shipping, my actual net profit is usually around the $10 to $15 range. That's where I like to be at, per book. That is like my bread and butter.
Okay, so at a 10 to 15, you said $10 to $15 profit per book. So I'm assuming your average sell price is probably around like the 20 range. Is that
Yeah, I'm at
okay?
like
Good.
22, 23,
Great.
kind of in between there. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was good. Do you think there are aspects of reselling, book reselling, that are incredibly challenging that don't get covered well on social media, or even let's say in your channel? Are there things that you think we both could do a better job of like showcasing? Okay, while it looks glamorous and while it can change a life, it's not easy, right? It's hard work. Are there things that you think we could do all as a community, like the social media community, a better job of explaining these are the challenges that you're gonna have to work through?
Yeah, I think that, and I've been guilty of it, and I talked about it recently on my channel. I think that sometimes people are vulnerable in the way of like they're miserable at their job or they're in a lot of debt and they're just trying to like find that miracle side hustle, right?
Right.
And I think that for people like myself, where like this is one of my primary sources of income, I try not to glamorize it too much because, like what we just discussed literally just a second ago, I mean, you have to be in business logistic mode. You have to kind of have an understanding of your numbers and what you're doing. I mean, it's great to go to a garage sale and find a cool vintage jersey that you can sell for 500 bucks. That's cool. And if you can do that 10 times in a month, that's even cooler. But like, what do your numbers look like after that? And is that a sustainable thing that you can do every single month where you live? And,
Right.
geography matters when it comes to book selling, even. If I lived in a New York apartment, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing right now.
Absolutely.
So I think that sometimes I play things off as like they're so easy. Actually, I did a one-on-one call with someone and she explained to me, she's like, I live in New Jersey and I live in an apartment. I can't do this. And I was like, it really took me a step back. And it's like, I have to remember that everyone has different stuff in their life. I said, okay, so let's figure out what you can do. So for her, what worked best was online auction bulk buying. So she went to, bulk.com. She went to high bid. She found auctions. She was able to get things in bulk in her area because her area had a ton of local pickups. So she didn't have the expense of shipping. And so we just made something work for her. And now, she was able to make it work and dedicate a room in her apartment to that. So I think even with I'm talking to myself when I say this, I think that sometimes while books are abundant and it's great, if you live in a small rural town, there's no colleges closer than an hour from you, you will have to stretch maybe more than me, who has 3 colleges in my town, tons of school. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like you'll have to be a little bit creative with your stretch. But it's not impossible. It just
Absolutely.
depends how bad you want it and what works for you.
Yeah, there's the reality of it, so I appreciate you sharing that. And even on my channel, maybe I don't share it enough, but online book arbitrage is the same. There are a lot of challenges. Maybe making a video going over those challenges might be helpful to you as well. But we are getting to the end, wrapping up here, and I have one last question for Katie. Katie is a mother of two. Now I'm a father of one right now. You're full time, stay at home. Full time means this is your full time work, but you're also a full time mom. Being a mom, being a dad is very easily a full time job. What sort of tips do you have for stay-at-home moms and dads, or even if you're not, but what sort of tips do you have for the stay-at-home moms and dads that maybe don't have too much experience in this world, but they do want to get into selling books because they perceive that as possible it could change a life?
Absolutely. Um, it really just comes down to time management. I got my bachelor's degree completely online. So I think when you go through different life experiences, you learn how to make time for all the things
Right.
and how you can stretch it. So I actually talked with a mom that had this kind of situation. She really wants to get into book selling. Whatnot was not for her because it's a live selling platform and it was
Right.
just too hard. So we found actually a different platform, Pango Books, that works really, really well for her. Pango Books is really, really popular with popular fiction and more modern books and children's books. And she had a lot of really great quality items that fit in that category. So Pango Books worked really well for her and eBay. So she cross listed between those two platforms, and that worked for her. But it came down to the fact that she really had 2 hours a day to kind of dedicate to that, because she just wanted to contribute a little bit to the household in that way financially. So we figured out a way. Okay, dedicate, Monday, Wednesday, Friday are your listing days. Tuesday and Thursday is when you thrift. And maybe you thrift when your partner gets home, or maybe you thrift online, or, however you decide to do that to get your inventory. And then, Tuesday and Thursday were also the days where she updated her books and kept track of her records and all the things for taxes. And, that's other things that we don't always talk about. There's a lot of behind the scenes documentation that goes into what we do. And so, she was making enough money through Pango Books that she had to keep track of, things for write-offs and stuff like that for taxes. And, it was really great. I'm happy for her, and she was able to make that work and do it, kind of part-time. And, even if it's a couple extra $100 a month, if that's what works for you, that's great. I think it just comes down to how much time do you actually have in your day,
Right.
and, what are you willing to potentially give up? I gave up a social life
Yeah.
for quite a few years. Not entirely, but, I gave up a little bit of a social life. Some people, it's like, what matters most to you? Is it getting up at 6 a.m., going to the gym, doing this, whatever, then having your kids, spending time with your kids, if that's really important to you. If Friday and Saturday are non-negotiable because they have T-ball or whatever, then you need to really, really kick butt Monday through Wednesday. Like, what does that look like for you? So I think it's very customizable per situation. But for me, it was just really time management, figuring out a schedule. I have a 15-year-old and a 2-year-old. So it's very, very big different situations. I can get a lot done. My 15-year-old's at school, but limited in like little sections, little bits, because then pretty soon it's nap time and we have to do something fun to keep him engaged and do this and do that. And, so utilizing different times throughout the day. And then every once in a while, she's helping me out and helping with her little brother too. So, and then having a village, I guess, is another thing I would say. If you have people that can help you out, even if it's once a week or a couple times a month, having someone to just watch the kids so you can have a day to just do what you got to do, that there's nothing wrong with that either. So,
Awesome. Incredible interview. I was extremely excited, grateful to bring Katey on the channel, and go back and watch this multiple times because there's so much value in all of Katey's responses. Before we go, I just want to show you some ways that you could support Katey if you're interested. Number one, you go to her YouTube channel. It's just Katey Reads. So subscribe there. Do you also have an Instagram?
mhm,
Yeah. So yeah, is it the same Katey Reads?
yep, it's the same handle on
Okay.
everything. Yep.
So we'll put those down below. Also, she has an affiliate link to Scout IQ and whatnot if you want to support her in that way. And also has one-on-ones apparently. So I'm not sure how can you give people a little bit of understanding how they can
It's very
there.
casual, kind of cherry pick. I don't talk about it, a whole lot. So pretty much just send me a message on Instagram if if you want to have a serious chat and figure out I like to just kind of help people figure out a game plan of, will books work for you in your area and what would that look like and what might be a good platform for you. So that's kind of what we talk about.
Awesome. All links down below. Again, watch this video again. A lot of value. Thank you so much, Katey. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you. Glad we could do it. I had fun.
Yeah.
I really
Awesome.
appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.